If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Taylor hit, but he bounces into the end zone. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y!
How can we, like you mentioned, as pillars, as guys who are leaders on this team, how can we turn that around?
Play action. Now he's in trouble, and he's going to be brought down. A sack for the Colts. DeForest Buckner back to the 27-yard line.
Never quit. I never not fault. I never not compete. And I will always continue to be a great leader, a great competitor.
Now he checks it down left side, looking for the end zone for Alec Pierce, and he's got it. Touchdown, Alec Pierce.
This is the official Colts podcast, giving you an updated look at what's new with the Horseshoes. In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
9 more days. 9 more days, like Ferris Bueller.
Like the longest? Does this feel like just the longest off-season build-up, ramp-up into the draft ever? It just feels like it's been so extensive to me.
9 days away, but it feels like it's like a billion days away. Like it might as well be in 2025. I'm just like, please. I'm like limping to the finish line of this process. And granted, who am I to complain? I haven't had to do any evaluation of these guys. Like, I literally have just been sitting on my computer doing like mock draft roundups and being on TweetDeck being like, ooh, here's this new one. Yeah. I haven't been doing anything. Really.
It's like Ferris Bueller. 9 more days. The hypotheticals will soon stop. The mock drafts 4.7 version from 30,000 different angles will cease, and then we'll have some answers, and then the narrative will change, and it's coming. The sun is starting to rise over the horizon, and soon we will have answers to what's going on in the first round of the NFL draft. Larra, with that in mind, what is the pre-draft topic? I know it's quarterback, but just kind of like nuanced. Well, what's the pre-draft topic that you're most sick of? You're going to be excited is in the rearview mirror?
I think all of the conjecture on moving up, moving back, all of that, all of the demand there is, at number 3, everyone who's tried to pursue that spot. I think that's the one because it feels like so much posturing by people, whether it's, teams or GMs or agents or whatever. I think that's the one is, will people stay? Will they move? Mm-hmm. How much, how much power does Arizona hold with the pick that they have? I think that's kind of the one just at league wide that I'm ready to have finality
I got
to.
bad news for you. We're going to do a little bit of that today, but soon, right? Soon enough. And I'm with you. And JJ, I'm sick of some of that conjecture as well. But I mean, this is where we've been in since November, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this is one of the most important off seasons for the Colts in certainly the last decade. And we'll see how it goes in terms of setting themselves up for success foundationally for the next 5-6 years, depending on how this goes.
I mean, next Thursday night is going to be one of the biggest nights in recent franchise history, because you think about the last 2 times the Colts have been in a position to take a quarterback in the first round. Yeah, it was, do you take Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf? Do you take Andrew Luck or Robert Griffin III? And there were some debates about that, but ultimately, and maybe it is some revisionist history, but ultimately it's like that wasn't much of a debate on those guys. There was a clear-cut number 1 in both of those drafts. Yep. And this year, the Colts are picking 4th, so as we go through these scenarios, Mayte, later in this podcast, it's like, do the Colts get the 2nd quarterback in the draft? Do they get the 4th quarterback in the draft? Do they not take a quarterback? The thing I'm ready to be done with, though, is, and I'll just kind of plant my flag in this one, is this thought that 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first 4 picks.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to happen.
It's never happened before.
It's never happened before, and this year, if it was going to happen in any year, you'd think it would have been in 2021 when 3 quarterbacks went in the first 4 picks. And then Justin Fields went, I think it was, 10th or 11th? So if in that year there weren't 4 quarterbacks taken, why in this year would there be? That it would be unprecedented. And I've been saying it for a while that I don't think this year is the year where that is going to happen. And I'm going to stick to that.
Yeah, I don't think that the 4 best players in this draft are quarterbacks. I don't think there's 4 quarterbacks that have the grade league-wide.
Heck, I don't think there's a consensus on what the top quarterback is, even, really.
Well, you're starting to read more and more that it's going to be Bryce Young, and we still don't know. That's just what people think. That's what people say. That's what people are inferring based on reports and inside sources and things like that. But there is still a ton to sort out and to think about, even though we're still just 9 days away, or only 9 days away, I should say, from the draft. So,
No, it's still. It's
still.
Definitely
It's still. It's not only. It's still.
Mentally, I think the draft is 2 days from now. Like, it should be 2 days from now.
I wish it were.
Yeah. I mean, this paralysis by analysis, right, that we're stuck with for the next week to continue to talk about this stuff. But we're loaded, as always, on the podcast, talking heavy draft. We'll talk about the Colts setting their board, trying to predict how the first 4 picks will go next Thursday night. We're also going to play a round of What If I Told You? React to some statements regarding the Colts draft and some defensive expectations for the Colts coming up next season. And then finally today in the podcast, Chuck Pagano is back on this podcast. Welcome back, the former head coach of the Colts. He's going to be back in town this Friday, this week, for the 11th annual Chuckstrong Gala. Do you guys say gala or gala?
I'm a gala person.
I'm a gala person, too.
I'm a gala person.
All right, we're kind of split here. We got this hanging Chad that is JJ over here.
Wow.
No, he's
gala.
outnumbered.
Gala?
I always said gala.
Correct.
Gala.
No.
Yeah.
Chuckstrong
I'm the wrong guy
back.
to talk to about pronunciations, because yesterday I said, I was like, hey, can you pull that off? But I was in regards to, like, hey, we need to get in the pool, pull. And I said the pull instead of the pool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have a weird Midwestern thing with, like, roof and rough. So, yeah,
Your
I'm
Chicago
the wrong guy.
is showing.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy to ask about this.
Would you say you have a strong Chicago accent?
Yes. It comes out
I
of
would
me
say
sometimes.
it's like in the middle. It's in the middle.
It depends on how animated I get.
Yeah,
like
that's like my Southern accent comes out a little thicker.
Southern accent? Yeah. You're from Louisville, for crying out loud. That's not the South, is it?
It's Kentucky.
I would consider that the South.
Plus, the Overtons are all from Tennessee, so there's a heavy influence from, Rocky Top.
Also,
territory.
you get it from mom and pops.
If you're south of I-70, I think you can start to consider yourself from the South.
Oh, man, this is a conversation for another time. I feel
that
like
sounds like a random thought of the week.
It does sound like a random thought of the week.
No, I am not Southern. I am not. I'm south of 70. Anyways, we'll talk about Chuck coming up, the significance of Chuckstrong in year number 11. So, all right, less than a week away, or I should say a little bit over a week away. I wish we were days away, but we're not just yet. So the Colts, like 31 other teams, JJ, they're putting the finishing touches on their draft board. They're setting their pecking order, going through all the different hypotheticals that could happen in front of them. But for the Colts, JJ, quarterbacks, they have to have the board set at this time, don't they, with quarterbacks? I mean, don't you think they're there right now?
I mean, as long as, and I don't know what the schedule is, but I do know that eventually coaches will be brought in. I don't know if that's happened yet. Mm-hmm. And Chris Ballard has said, the cement isn't dry until draft day. So there's still a lot more evaluation and more accurately, there's a lot more information that needs to be sifted through. I think tomorrow is the last day for top 30 visits where you can bring guys in. So once you get past that, the last day for top 30, I think that's when you really start to solidify your draft board about a week ahead of the NFL draft.
Yeah, there have been these ongoing, we've seen all the reports of those top 30 visits, which have continued. We know, of course, the coaches get heavily involved in this period of time and meeting with those guys, spending time with them. So I think what you'll see is likely over the weekend, the latter part of this week and into early next week, the board will be set and you'll start to get some of the coaches' influence in some of these critical positions, especially, first, second, third round type of guys. That's really where you really want the influence of Shane Steichen, Jim Bob Cooter, Gus Bradley, all of those guys in terms of where you're selecting and who you're picking.
Yeah, you don't have a stapler over there, right? You can't throw anything at me because I want to talk about contingency plans, Larra. How many? Because I know you don't want to talk about this, but this is where we're at. This is what we're left with 9 days away. How many contingency plans?
I have a very heavy water bottle that I can chuck at you.
Anything that can be used as a weapon. What is the number of plans the Colts have to have in place to cover all of their bases for the different scenarios that could play out in front of them, even picking at 4?
It's numerous because we know the way that they grade a player based on the player and his specific skill set and his value. They don't grade it by position or need. So they will value and prioritize certain players differently than those teams that are ahead of them. And in knowing that, you set yourself up as, we know our board isn't stacked the exact same way, that Houston's or Carolina's or Arizona's are. So that allows you to know we don't have to do so much guessing as to what they're doing, because we're confident in knowing how much we value these first 5 guys, or the first, they're going to go probably the entirety of, the first round of stacking exactly how they prioritize guys. So you are ready for any type of scenario, and you know that no matter what happens ahead of you, the guy that you have highest graded remaining on your board is the guy you're going to get.
Yeah, you only have to
draft
have,
comes to you.
You only have to have 4 guys
you don't reach.
who you're willing to take
right.
with that pick. But I kind of gamed this out just for fun, and I got to 8.
And you know what you would do if you'd move back?
Right.
To that
so
same
I got
argument.
to 8 contingency plans based on what happens ahead of the Colts. Because I was like, let's just have some fun here. So the only guarantee in this NFL draft is that Carolina...
Speculation nation.
Love it. The only guarantee in this draft is that Carolina will take a quarterback.
Yes.
Right now.
And we all think that's Bryce Young.
Right now, we all think that's Bryce Young.
Most people.
Right now. Yeah. That still could change, but right now Bryce Young is heavily favored to be the first overall pick. So in I think 6 of these scenarios I gamed out, I had Bryce Young going number 1 overall. Then Houston, to me the draft starts at Houston with what they do. And if you believe a lot of the chatter out there.
Which I don't.
I kind of do.
Do you?
Houston may not take a quarterback at number 2.
I'm with you here.
Houston, think about it this way.
You're with JJ?
I'm with JJ.
There's no way Houston does not take a quarterback. But continue.
They could take a quarterback at 12.
Continue.
Or they could use that 12th pick to move up.
I'm
at
with
2,
you.
If Houston goes off their draft board and they're like, okay, we have, say, Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech sticking out. This guy is like him and Bryce Young are at the top of our draft board, and then there's a gap. Mm-hmm. Why would you not take Tyree Wilson if you think, oh my God, we're taking, like, if you're DeMeco Ryans in there and you're like, that guy is the next Nick Bosa, go get me Nick Bosa, take him. And then you have your second first-round pick plus Cleveland's first next year.
Right.
And several other picks from the Browns.
Right.
You could still maneuver in this year's draft, or you could say
trade up in the top 10.
Or you could say we'll let a quarterback come to us at 12 potentially, or we'll get deeper into the draft and Philly at 10. Maybe they trade back a couple spots. We can go up and get a guy there. Houston has options. They are not, to me, they are not locked into taking a quarterback at 2. Their roster is also not in a position where you can say, like, say, the Lions or the Seahawks, where it's like you're probably not going to be picking in the top 5, 6 again anytime soon. Houston's roster is a lot better today than it has been in years past, and their coaching staff is in a lot better place. But to me, they are not a definite need to get a quarterback team. You have a first-year defensive-minded head coach and other holes that you need to fill on that roster. To me, them at 2, it is not a slam dunk unless they think one of these other quarterbacks, who is maybe not Bryce Young, is on the same level as a Tyree Wilson, a Will Anderson, one of those guys, a Jalen Carter potentially. Then you take that guy. Quarterback becomes the deciding, the tiebreaker. But if their draft board is stacked the way that it could be, you might not have a quarterback in that top 2 or 3 players in this year's draft.
All right, what does that do for the Colts? Because I don't think the Texans – I strongly think they're going to take a quarterback. But hypothetically, if they don't, if they say we'll get the best player in the draft, not worry about quarterback, we might get one at 12 or trade back in the top 10, how does that change things for the Colts? Because I think at that point the Colts, JJ, have to be thinking, all right, there's one more quarterback that's available to us that we didn't plan on. If the Texans don't take a quarterback, the Colts would have to have that competitive trade package, if you will, ready to go with the Cardinals if they wanted to move up, because the Cardinals at that point, their phone's going to be ringing off the hook. They're going to be taking offers and fielding offers. That contingency plan needs to be pre-planned. That's another contingency. Pre-plan your package offer for a trade. What are you willing to give up to move up to 3, and what quarterback still needs to be on the board at 3 in order to pull that trigger? That, to me, is the biggest contingency plan the Colts have to weigh through.
Right, and you're absolutely right about pre-planning this. No team that is operating properly is going to be caught by surprise if Houston doesn't take a quarterback. So Arizona's probably having these discussions already. They're probably calling up the Colts, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Titans, any team that might have a need for a young quarterback. They're probably calling them. Monty Ossenfort's probably like, all right, what are we doing here? If Houston doesn't take a quarterback, what's your offer? Because 10 minutes is not a lot of time. And you can't be negotiating like, oh, man, we got caught by – I can't believe that happened.
What's our round 3 pick worth, you know?
They
right
don't.
there.
The Titans actually don't make me nervous at all.
Really?
No. If Tennessee – I know we have a lot of respect for Tennessee in this building because we haven't beat them in quite a while. Tennessee's roster – it's not good.
Oh, I'm saying in terms of moving up to that position, moving ahead of you and taking someone. That's why I'm saying they make me nervous. I do think that they're in a position to make a bold move. That's why they make me nervous.
This is why they don't make me nervous, though. If you take a quarterback and you're Tennessee and you're giving up draft capital to go get a quarterback, who are you putting him on an offense with? Derrick Henry, who averaged
less than 4
yards per carry, an offensive line that a lot of people think right now is the worst group in the NFL. A wide receiver group that a lot of people think is among the worst groups in the NFL. That, to me, you are setting your quarterback up to fail if you're Tennessee and if you trade up to get him. Now, if the draft falls to you, that's another thing because you can still address some of those needs later in the draft. But to move up from 11 to 3 is probably going to cost you a future first-round pick, maybe a second-rounder this year. It's going to cost you a lot. And I just don't see a world in which that is a logical proposition for the Titans. Now, maybe they're sitting there and they're like, man, we have a super high grade on C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson, and all of a sudden he's available. We didn't think he was going to be there. Let's go get him, and let's figure out the rest later. That I could see that happening, but first-year GM, that is a tough proposition for me, for Tennessee to move up. They don't worry me as, like, to me, all that chatter about Tennessee potentially moving up to 3, that was smoke from the Cardinals. That's smoke from Arizona trying to scare someone into trading up to 3 before the draft. Less so from the Titans side.
So that report from ESPN last week, there's 6 teams that the Cardinals are flirting with in terms of a trade. You don't think Tennessee's part of that?
What does flirting with really mean? Does that mean we made one phone call? Or does that mean
probably?
Does that mean we went out on a first date and it was fine?
Yeah.
You know,
the check.
You texted him after, that was fun, and then you never text him back.
Yeah.
Maybe
we'll do this again sometime. We'll split the check.
Or is this, all right, we're on to a second or third date now, and this is getting a little more serious.
Did you guys watch that dating show that aired like at midnight? And they did blind
Love
date
is
first.
Blind?
No, not that one. It was like back in the day, like late 90s, early 2000s.
For sure.
And they had the little bubbles.
I watched it in my dorm room. Foster Harper, shout out.
Terrible.
You know, I do remember that.
Terrible show.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It was like a TMZ type show, but it was trash TV at like 1 in the morning. I would, Larra, before you punch me in the face, do you want to talk about how the first 4 picks will go?
I don't know, because I don't think it's set where it's going to be. I think that somebody's going to jump up. So I think it's so dependent on who is the team that jumps in.
Yes or no, Cardinals trade the pick?
Yes.
No.
I think they trade the pick.
I don't think they do.
Okay.
The more and maybe I'm just getting kind of suckered in by this, but the more I read about this and the more I hear about this, there might not be a team willing to trade up to Arizona and pay the price that Arizona justifiably would want, probably a future first-round pick, to go get one of these guys. Because if there's not, again, we're talking about this, there's probably not a consensus on what order you're putting these top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in. I saw a mock draft that had Hendon Hooker going before Will Levis this week. I mean, you could have a scenario where a team's sitting there, like say the Raiders, they're sitting there and they're like, do we really want to go trade a future first when we already traded a future first last year for Devontae Adams, or we traded our first last year for Devontae Adams? We're going to go up, and now we're going to burn another first with a roster that does need some holes filled to go get a guy who we think there's a marginal difference between 2 and 4. I don't totally buy that. I think Arizona's going to have a harder time trading this pick than people think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could happen that way. My gut says they do trade the pick just because you have so many quarterback desperate, needy teams that try to fix it. Are they all right? Absolutely not. Just plenty more draft busts than there are draft hits, but that's what happens. Quarterbacks get thrusted up the board, and there's always teams willing to take them because of their desperation in terms of where they're at from a franchise standpoint. We're going to find out coming up April 27th. Go ahead.
Real quick, who do you think is the sneakiest team that could go up to 3? I think we're talking about the Raiders, the Titans.
Maybe the Lions?
I'm going to throw one out there. What about the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield's on a contract.
Where are they at?
They're at 19.
Man, that would take a bunch.
It would take a lot.
That'd
but
take a bunch.
Baker Mayfield is on a contract that is not prohibitive for you moving up first, starting a young quarterback, and there's a 1 year, $4 million. It's not a whole lot there. And they're in a position where they need to have a cheap contract at quarterback to kind of work through some of the post-Tom Brady era. Them, or I don't think the Vikings would trade up, but they're kind of another sneaky team, too, that could be in the market if a quarterback falls to go up a little bit.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of hooting and hollering on day one of the draft. Thursday night, you can join in that regard. The Colts are hosting their official draft party. It's presented by Bud Light, and it's at Buffalo Wild Wings locations across central Indiana, Indianapolis, Greenwood, Plainfield, and Westfield. The parties are free. They're open to fans of all ages. Activities will include appearances by several Colts legends. Gary Brackett's going to be involved, Marlon Jackson, Jack Doyle, and others. Colts cheerleaders, giveaways, and other fan and family-friendly opportunities. For all the details and where the players are going to be, head to Colts.com/draft. All right, as promised, let's break out the What If machine.
What if I told you?
All right, what if I told you? Remember that back in the day? Remember that, the 30 for 30 guy?
What if I told you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What if I told you there was a great one before the great one? Remember that? All right, so let's react to some statements. I'm going to bust out some statements to you guys, and I just want you to tell me how you feel or how you would feel if they came true. Give me your gut reaction, okay? So what if I told you?
What if I told you?
What if I told you the Colts, JJ, move up to the 3rd overall selection, so they are the team that trades with the Cardinals, jump up to 3, and they draft Anthony Richardson? What if I told you that?
To me, that would tell me that the Colts have a very high grade on Anthony Richardson, that there would be a gap between him and potentially the 3rd quarterback or the 4th quarterback on the board, depending what Houston does.
Right.
And they couldn't risk not getting him. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. If the draft starts playing out on next Thursday night, and the Colts say we cannot risk missing out on Anthony Richardson because the gap between him and the next guy on our board is so significant that we're willing to burn whatever it takes to go get him, that wouldn't surprise me as a scenario.
You know what's fascinating about Anthony Richardson as it relates to the Colts? Chris Ballard has routinely talked about the quarterback traits that he covets the most, and what is that? It's accuracy. And Richardson last year was sub 60% by a lot.
I mean, he was 53%.
Yeah, he was like 53%. He finished 13 out of 14 SEC quarterbacks last year in accuracy. And there's people, I've talked to people on our Inside the Draft series previewing the draft. There's people out there that think that if he throws to NFL receivers, if he has an NFL offense around him, his completion percentage is going to be fine because
right. If you give Anthony Richardson the receivers that Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud had,
right,
and the offensive line that each of those guys had, and the run game each of those guys had, like what would his specs be from
that? That's a big leap, though, to go from 53 to the high 60s, graduating up in competition and completion percentage. And so, again, Chris Ballard has said multiple times quarterbacks have to have escapability. They have to have that playmaking ability. But eventually, they all come down to delivering in the pocket. The game comes down to accuracy and making plays behind the offensive line. So it's still about throwing the ball and putting it where it needs to go. That's why it's a mystery. There's there's people that think Richardson's not worthy of a top 5 pick, and then there's other people that say his supporting cast at Florida really let him down with the drops, and they didn't have great playmakers. He's just this enigma that we've never seen before. He's projected to go in the top 5, JJ, but his resume screams day 3 project.
Well, potentially.
Yeah.
Or you look at him and you say, this is literally the most athletic quarterback prospect we have ever seen.
You have to balance that.
And so to kind of balance out what Chris Ballard said, and I would love to be privy to these conversations, I won't be, but Shane Steichen has said accuracy can be schemed. It can be coached. And it can be improved through scheme and through coaching. To me, what I want to know about these prospects, what flaw, because they're all flawed. Every single quarterback prospect in this year's draft is flawed in some way, shape, or form. What flaws are fixable?
Mm-hmm.
And what flaws are unfixable? And then what flaws are maybe not fixable, but you can work around? Like Josh Allen is never going to be the most accurate quarterback. He's not always going to throw with touch. But, man, the Bills worked around whatever flaws he had in his game, and it turned out he's a top 3 MVP candidate twice in his career.
He is definitely the exception, right? He is definitely proving that because he was sub 60 at Wyoming. Maybe not 53%, but he was definitely under 60.
First year in the NFL, 52% completion percentage. Second year, 59%.
Yeah.
Then it jumps to 69%. Then it's settled around 63% the last couple of years. If you could get Anthony Richardson to the 63% completion percentage in the NFL, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
That'd be great coaching.
Package that with his skill set.
Oh boy. But you have to believe in your development of the guy. But we've also seen quarterbacks come out like Sam Darnold. One of his flaws coming out was pocket presence, and that never was corrected. I don't know if you can correct that. Pocket presence is a hard thing to work on at the NFL level, and Sam Darnold, one of the reasons why he has struggled to find a foothold in the NFL is because he hasn't had very good pocket presence. He hasn't been able to see the field very well. Remember that game against the Patriots where he said he was seeing ghosts. You never want to hear that from your quarterback.
Yeah. Okay.
There are just certain traits that quarterbacks have that are both unfixable and you can't work around them. You can't find ways around them. And to me, that's where the Colts football operations staff, our great scouting department, has to be able to identify what are those traits that these quarterbacks have that are strong, and then what are the ones that they have that you can't really work around. Like you could probably work around Bryce Young's size. That is his biggest flaw. You could probably work around that, But are there certain flaws that these guys have that you can't work around? And the question about Anthony Richardson is accuracy that flaw? Can you work around it, or is it unfixable? And that's going to be a big question that every team is going to have to answer.
To what degree is it fixable?
Right. To what degree? Is it fixable to the point where, okay, he'll be a, high 50s completion percentage
and
guy.
can you live with that? Can you win with that?
Right.
All right.
What if I told you?
Number 2, what if I told you, Larra, the Colts do not draft a quarterback with the 4th overall pick. Gut reaction.
Holy my. To steal a line
what if I told you?
From my colleague Matt Taylor. Holy my.
Yes.
I do think that, I think that it would catch a lot of people off guard. However, I think that would mean that they use that very high 2nd round pick to get a quarterback that you plan on developing and give him somewhat of a redshirt year, and you have a long-term plan in place for a guy who you don't want to necessarily spend the capital of being that high in the draft on, but you do see promise and you see a lot of things that, give you the indication of the potential he could have with time. But when you take a guy at number 4, you expect that guy to kind of walk in and be an impact player rookie year, right? You think about guys who the Colts have taken in the top 10 picks. They're guys who have walked in the door and started. You don't feel like maybe there's a guy who has the ability to do that. You have Baker Mayfield here. You give a guy this next year to develop, and then you see where he is a year from now after learning the system, getting up to speed. Maybe he starts some games later in the season for you, and then you kind of plan on 2024 as being the real opportunity for him to be the primary quarterback for you.
Yeah, it was like we were just talking about, Larra, with the Colts draft board, where if you stack it to your top 4 guys and 3 of those 4 guys are gone, you're probably going to take the 4th guy. Yeah. And that might not be a quarterback. If the Colts come out of this draft, by the way, not taking a quarterback in the top 5, but they get like the next great defensive player in Colts history, in 10 years, no one should be mad about that. Like if you got a great player 4th overall versus reaching for a quarterback 4th who you don't really like, that guy could set you back longer as a franchise if you get it wrong and you reach for someone who is lower down on your board. The thing that would surprise me in this scenario would be if the Colts didn't try to trade out of that pick. Like if they're sitting at 4 and they're not going to take a quarterback, you got to figure that probably means a couple of quarterbacks have gone ahead of the Colts. And maybe there's a run on quarterbacks at this point, and the Colts say,
maybe
we'll see
3 quarterbacks,
right?
Top
we'll
3.
We'll see if someone likes the 4th guy or the 3rd guy who maybe we don't like as much, and we try to trade out of it and accumulate a little more draft capital later to continue to build out the roster. And maybe you have to use that draft capital to go back into the first round, late in the first round, to still go get that more developmental quarterback. You still might have to do that. We've seen teams do that. The Vikings traded back to 32 to get Teddy Bridgewater. The Ravens traded back into the first round to 32 to get Lamar Jackson.
Right.
That's something that teams have done in the past. Maybe that's something some way the Colts have to go in this draft too. We'll see.
Yeah, one of these 4 teams is not going to draft a quarterback. I agree with you.
I'm with you, yeah.
Yes, teams, like I said, get desperate to find their quarterback of the future, and they sort of talk themselves into drafting players who are flawed prospects. And again, like I said, for every great one, there's 2 or 3 busts. But Chris Ballard has shown that he's determined to not make that mistake. But at the same time, the Colts have never picked this high before under Chris's guidance, and they need a quarterback. So we really don't know how this is going to go down. Again, I think this all kind of depends on what the Texans do at 2, right? If the Texans don't take a quarterback for the Colts, it then becomes, do we trade up to 3 and get the guy we love, or do we sit at 4? And if they sit at 4, that would tell us as fans that they have similar evaluations on 2 players, and they would be comfortable taking either guy at 4 if indeed they pull a trigger on a quarterback. Fascinating stuff, because there's all these things that we can go off in terms of the history and the things that Chris Ballard has said, but at the same time, he's never been in this position before to draft a quarterback in the top 5. It's
a clear need.
That's the gaping need on their roster right now.
Yeah, right. It's Jim Irsay talked about this at the owners' meetings, but the benefits of having a quarterback on a rookie contract for the way you can build your roster is significant. The Colts haven't had that since the first couple of years of Andrew Luck's career, because then they made him the highest paid player in NFL history and have been cycling through veteran quarterbacks.
And they were going 11-5 every year.
Right.
Then.
But, since Luck got that extension, it's been, you're paying your quarterback a pretty significant chunk of the cap every single year. This is an opportunity to kind of reset that, and the advantages to building a roster are pretty significant at that point.
What if I told you?
What if I told you number 3? Let's go right here, right now, in-house. Larra, what if I told you the Colts defense will be drastically better next season than they were last season in 2022? Gut reaction.
Believable. Absolutely.
Love it.
Because you've retained a lot of guys who are impactful players. I mean, the kind of biggest notable departures being Stephon Gilmore, Bobby Okereke from the defensive side of the ball. You've got and Yannick Ngakoue as well. We should add that in. But, you have impactful guys up front who are growing within this system. We know how much this defense kind of struggled to just learn the playbook and really embrace Gus's scheme. I think that they will be, and this is something that I really wanted to, actually, it was something that we talked with Zaire Franklin about last week, JJ, when we were sitting in the media room. I asked him about the bar that is set from this defense, especially being that you have a second year in the system. For all that has changed within this organization, new head coach, entirely new offensive staff with a few, despite, Reggie Wayne and Brian Bratton being a few carryovers from last year. But for the majority, the entire offense is new. You have a new head coach, but defense has all of that continuity. So I asked him about that expectation, and he said that expectation does not change. They do want to be better at taking the ball away this year. And let's also think about, you should have Shaq Leonard for more than 2 football games this year.
More than 74 snaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You should have him for more time than that. 2 games,
Hopefully.
right? I'm correct on that?
2? I think he appeared in 3 games.
Okay.
3 games.
But it was 74 total snaps.
Okay. So right there, that one addition should make you better. And then also thinking about just being able to build upon for this team, having that knowledge, having the comfort within the system, and just knowing also where they fell short last year is going to motivate this group a lot.
Yeah, to me, this comes from more turnovers, and turnovers can come from continuity. When you have guys who, like Zaire was talking about last week, how you can play just that half second faster when you know the scheme, you know that everyone around you knows the scheme, and then, oh, by the way, add in the best turnover creating off-ball linebacker in the NFL, maybe in NFL history, back into the lineup, hopefully. That's going to be pretty good, I think. And, the defense fell off last year in the latter half of the season. I don't think any of us are, probably holding that against them. Just the way that the season ended was challenging for the defense. I was almost surprised to see that, like, hey, wait a minute, the Colts allowed 25.1 points per game. That was tied for 3rd worst in the NFL last year, and I was kind of like, really?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that.
And it went up to 30 points per game in the last 8 games of the season when they had all that chaos and Frank Reich and got Jeff Saturday came in. So yeah, you're exactly right.
The defense was pretty good the first half of the season, and then things got chaotic and it started to fall off. And that doesn't mean that the defense doesn't bear some responsibility here, certainly, but I kind of feel like they were a middle of the NFL defense last year, and this year they could be a top 10 defense if things go well.
Yeah, all the basics have been installed. The initial learning process is over, so now is where you see guys in year 2 play faster, more freely within this system, focusing on the details, not thinking so much, just going out there and making plays. I like it. What if I told you?
What if I told you?
What if I told you I'm hungry right now? I'm ready for lunch coming up in just a bit. Larra Overton's over there saying, I need more coffee.
Always.
You gotta liven up here.
I know.
We got a big guest coming up right now.
Oh, I know.
Let's go to the phone lines, all right? Let's go to the phone lines. Welcome in our special guest to the podcast today. It's always an absolute pleasure to talk to this guy. We teased him at the top because of what he still means to the Colts and the city of Indianapolis and the good that he's still doing for an unbelievable cause. Joining us now, former Colts head coach, Chuck Pagano. Coach, how you doing today? Thanks so much for the time.
Doing great. Thanks for having me. It's always great being with you guys.
Indeed. So this Friday, the Colts are hosting the 11th annual Chuckstrong Tailgate Gala back in town to raise awareness and funds for cancer research at the Indiana University Simon Cancer Center. And to date, Coach, you guys have raised more than $12 million for cancer research throughout corporate sponsorships, live and silent auctions, generous contributions from you and your family, the Jim Irsay family, and event guests. How much does this event still mean to you, and what does it mean that the Colts support this and they put it on at the team facility every year?
It means the world to myself and my family. So grateful and thankful that, to think we're 11 years into this deal. I was at the right place at the right time, obviously, and got the best care that anyone could get at that time. And to, again, think this is Chuckstrong 11.0, the generosity and support from Jim Irsay and his family, the Indianapolis Colts. You don't see something like this very often. The way things that went down and how things transpired, but it's just amazing. And to the donors and the sponsors and everybody involved, everybody at IU, Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center. It's just incredible. And, Matt, we said if we get through this, we get on the other side of this thing. And fortunately, we did, and cancer-free now over 10 years, that we were going to pay it forward. And we were going to give back as long as we were living and breathing, and everybody wanted to still do this thing, that we were going to do it. So many people reached out to me that I didn't know. I was barely in Indy 6 months, 7 months, whatever it was.
Right.
And the support and encouragement that we got at that time, now it's an opportunity, for us, like I said, to keep paying this thing forward and help others get through their circumstances.
Chuck, in addition to all the money that has been raised to fund the research and the programming, Chuckstrong as a mantra and just what you have meant to the community has really helped break some barriers in terms of just having conversations. How impacted have you been by when you are at, whether it's these functions or you're out and about and you're at games or whatever it might be, where people stop you and they are able to share their stories or able to share what they went through in their experiences, or maybe how you helped them confront their battles even more so and be stronger through their own journeys because of how you stood up and how vocal you were and how forward-facing you were throughout your journey and how much you have campaigned for all of this research since?
Yeah, great question, Larra. It's amazing. Again, just going back to going through my cancer journey, again, all those people that reached out to me and supported me, told me of their stories, what they went through. Everyone from a 5-6 year old young boy reaching out to me to whoever. These are the things that you can expect, Coach. These are going to be some of the side effects from chemo. You can do this. You got this. Stay strong. Keep the faith. All that stuff, right? And now it's it seems like it's daily where we have opportunities to do the same thing and help others and give other people hope. Because these stories of overcoming adversity and these obstacles and winning these battles. Again, we're still having to say goodbye, to loved ones way too soon. But it just seems like there's a lot more, success stories than the others. It's incredible, and to be sitting in the position, it's so unique, especially to that community, that city, the people of Indiana and Indianapolis. It's just really, really special to be able to, to help and encourage others and share, the things that we've been through with others, and to see them come out the other side of this thing, healthy and cancer-free.
It's always such a star-studded lineup. This year, no exception. Ray Lewis is going to be one to join you this year. And then someone who, just as you mentioned, has been through this, has experienced it firsthand, Washington Commanders head coach Ron Rivera. How excited are you to have this group together, and how meaningful is it for you to see the number of guys from across this NFL community who are so eager to step up, to come in and support this organization, support this cause?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've always talked about the relationships, and being out of football right now, Larra. That's what you miss is the guys, the camaraderie, the relationships, the locker room, the competition. But it's amazing. And Ron, Ray, Reggie, everybody that's come back, year after year, and then to be able to have a guy, last year was so cool, with BA coming in and being on stage with BA and sharing. Most people kind of knew most of that story. We did our little deal with you before that event, last year. And then, to be able to give, people behind the curtain, scene, if you will, of actually what we went through. And then, knowing Ron for all these years from afar and watching his coaching career, and him and his wife, Stephanie, giving of their time to come up and support the Chuckstrong, Gala and event and share his cancer journey. And then a guy like Ray, we know how busy, these people are and how busy he is, and Reggie and all the guys and coming in and sharing. It means the world. again, to me and my family, and selfless individuals. I mean, just as good of people as there are, to be able to come and do these things and give back. And it's pretty special. And again, it just goes back. It's all about the relationships.
Chuck, kind of along those lines, what does it mean to you that you get to host this event in Indianapolis at the Colts facility every year with the support of the Colts, starting with Mr. Irsay and his family, and just to be able to continue to hold this event in this place, in such a special place?
Yeah, again, it's kind of surreal, to be honest with you, because there's a shelf life for all these jobs, right? And I was fortunate, to get 6 great years there in Indy, and sometimes they all don't end the way you want them to end, and there's a few magical endings to a lot of these things, and but it's just incredible, and it just kind of blows you away to think that we're still doing this. Jim's still supporting this thing. The Colts, supporting this event, having it at the Colts facility, being back there, being back in Indianapolis and hanging out with those people. It's like coming back a year ago and, pounding the anvil. I mean, who'd have thunk? I mean, I don't, it's just because of the circumstances, that we all went through back in 2012. And then again, the kindness and goodness of the people there in that organization, starting at the top with Jim, that we're still doing this, and it's impacting so many people and helping so many people, and all the funds that are raised, as we all know, every penny goes to cancer research there at IU, Simon Comprehensive Cancer Center, and it's wild. It's crazy. Tina and I love coming back for this deal. We're grateful that we're still doing this, and hopefully, this one will be awesome, and who knows, maybe we get another decade, of dominance in this area.
Chuck, this isn't a question; it's more of a statement of gratitude. But as we've talked about, people you've impacted through your journey. One of those was a mentor to me, John Moon Mullen, who I worked with very closely when I covered the Chicago Bears when you were the defensive coordinator up there.
Right.
And Moon was, he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in December 2019. And he talked to me a lot about the conversations you two had and how you encouraged him to have a certain mindset in fighting his battle. And Moon lived 2.5 years with stage 4 pancreatic cancer before he passed away last year. And I don't know if Moon makes it as long as he did without some of those conversations you had early on with him. So it's more of a statement of gratitude and a thank you, just having seen the direct impact you can have on a person.
Yeah, that was a special time, for me. When Moon was diagnosed, and then, obviously getting to know him, there when I was, early on at the Bears. But I mean, that's what it's all about. And the way that Moon, because we all know, like, stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis. I mean, I don't know if you can count on one hand any, we all know what that diagnosis is and what that means. And for the way that Moon battled with such, strength and perseverance and dignity, it was unbelievable. And that gives so many other people so much hope to see that they could come out on the other side of it. But I was grateful for that relationship with Moon. What a stud! What an all-star! What an amazing man! And what he did in his career and his lifetime. His legacy will obviously live on forever. What he accomplished and what he did. Mm-hmm. But again, to watch him persevere and fight the way that he did, and his attitude, I mean, just incredible. What an incredible human being, and I know he's dearly missed and those kind of things. But the way that he did it, I know it's helping others.
Coach, kind of going along with JJ, this is more of a statement, but your first year with the Colts was my first year, 2012, and I can't forget that speech that you gave in the locker room late in the season after a home win. that speech about talking about your circumstances and not letting circumstances define you no matter what it is that you do. You talked about beating cancer so that you can be there with your family, to be a great husband, walk down the aisle of your daughter's weddings. And I know you've already been able to do a lot of those things. And, that speech still gives me chills because of your dedication to this. A lot of people are, they're being able to live those moments and have those same moments that you wanted to share with your loved ones because of the work that you're doing. I mean, this has just got to be so incredibly satisfying being able to share in those moments and to hear those stories from other people.
Yeah, it's again, it is amazing. I share that a lot. That moment again seems surreal to me. To number one, get out of the hospital after a month in there, basically almost a month, and then be at home and then have the ability to be able to come to a game and wasn't supposed to be around the team,
right?
But they snuck me down after that great win and got to share that moment with the coaches and the players after being away for some time. That's what I usually share with people is, live in vision and not circumstance. And it is a mindset, and you get that vision in your mind, and it's attitude, it's all of that stuff. But you can overcome a lot with just having that vision and that mindset. I got one more daughter to walk down the aisle. Like you said, I got to experience, one of them. Tori got married in 18, and got to do that one, and now, every day's a blessing. We know life's hard. As soon as we figure that out, I used to tell the players all the time, hey, life's hard. As soon as you figure that out, it starts getting a lot easier, just how it is.
Yeah.
And we're going to deal with stuff. We're going to deal with circumstance. We're going to deal with adversity. But you're not alone. NFA, right? We always talk about nobody fights alone. So we get the opportunity to continue to do this thing and help encourage others who are going to battle. So very, very blessed and grateful and thankful for that.
Indeed. Coach, I'm sure you can picture it in your mind. We're in that same radio studio right now where you did those countless interviews in your 6 years as a head coach of the Colts. So just want to say thanks for being so great to work with back then, and thanks for your time today. Best of luck with the gala coming up on Friday, and continued success with all that you do, and all the best to you and your family, as always.
Thank you so much. Very, very fond memories. Grateful for all you guys and what you did for me during that time. So appreciate you having me on. Take care.
That's Chuck Pagano, Chuckstrong, coming up this Friday, the 11th annual event here at the Indiana Farm Bureau Football Center. For more details on that, again, be sure to visit Colts.com. Fantastic stuff, as always. I mean, Chuck was so easy to work with, Larra. I mean, he's great on the airwaves, but he was better off the air, to be honest with you. I wish some of those off-the-air conversations before we went live or hit the record button could have made it, because he was just so candid and down to earth.
Well, and I got to work with him. I was freelancing over here and working at Fox 59, so I didn't get to work with him as intimately as you did, but have had so many just incredible opportunities to be here in the building with him. And one of them last year is, to me, the most memorable was sitting with Chuck and with Bruce Arians when we were talking about the 10th anniversary of the Chuckstrong game, the comeback over the Packers. And there was so much. One, we had to leave on the cutting room floor just for time's sake, but then also before they got mic'd up and afterward and just walking around the building and hanging out with them and going over to kind of the cocktail party and the reception to see people and just how they flock to each of those guys and how much they mean, the impact that they've made on this community, on this team.
Yep.
It is just so much fun. And you love that despite the fact that they've all moved on and had great success, even after their Colts careers, they're such a big part of this franchise still. It's so much of the part of the family that they are.
Yeah, for sure. So again, Friday night, the big night, the Chuckstrong we're going gala over gala. But it should be a fantastic time nonetheless. Again, Colts.com for all the details. It's always going to be great to see Chuck back in town. All right, let's close out. Let's get weird on the random thought of the week. I'm bringing back the intro.
Random thought of the week.
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
You guys going out of town? Do you know if it's cold there? Do these vans get good gas mileage?
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
All right, I am passing the torch or the baton over to Larra this week.
Okay, this has no timeliness whatsoever. It's just something that I love to toss out to people as a conversation starter. So feel free to steal this for your next cocktail party or, group gathering,
How much does
whatever
a
it
polar
might
bear
be.
weigh? Enough to break the ice. How you doing?
Oh my God. Okay. When Edgerrin James was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he selected Colts owner Jim Irsay to introduce him.
Yes.
Peyton Manning had his dad introduce him, right? That's always a big deal. If you were to be inducted into a respective Hall of Fame, whatever it might be, who would you select to introduce you?
As your presenter.
Yes, who would be the one to present you?
Oh, my gosh.
I can start since I've had time for this. So my college coach, Judy Wilson, she was my track and cross-country coach at Indiana. I always call her, she is my Hall of Fame human. That's what I call her all the time. And I joke that she is the person in my life who has impacted me most, who is not genetically or legally bound to me. Okay?
I like that.
So
I like that a lot.
So she
that
is
they don't have to support you.
Yes. So she just was the one who gave me a chance. She saw promise in me when I was just like this very wide-eyed, overwhelmed kid that was not nearly probably, talented enough or quite fast enough to be worthy of as much attention as she gave me as a high school junior and senior to recruit me to go to Indiana. And going to Indiana, running track, competing in cross country, the teammates that she surrounded me with, the amount of conviction that she had in me, it absolutely instilled in me what it would take to go on and create the trajectory of the rest of my life, and I am forever indebted to her. And she also tells hysterical stories, so I think you got to think about that as well. She's one of the funniest. She's so funny, so undoubtedly she'd be entertaining as well. But I feel like that I just owe her so much, because I would not be where I am today in any facet without Judy Wilson.
Love that.
To me, the funniest one would just be if I had my wife Betsy do it, because she would just probably roast me. Like, it would be very,
awesome.
Very heartfelt, but also it would be, I think it would be fun for everyone.
There's nothing better than a roast.
Yeah, it would be like, like a lot of heartfelt things, but also like, remember the time this happened? Like,
our wedding speeches kind of became roasts.
Have you guys ever roasted somebody?
No.
Oh my God,
No.
It's the most fun I've ever had in my entire life.
Who did you roast?
I roasted
J&V?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And you talk about fishing in a barrel right there.
Oh.
But it was awesome. That kind of like blends into stand-up comedy, which I've done twice. It's the most exhilarating, fun, high experience that you can get. Like, you talk about endorphins. Like, when you go up there and you're trying to make people laugh, but they want to laugh, but you have to earn it, right? You have to earn that respect of making somebody laugh. And when you go out there and you actually make someone laugh when that's your intention, no better high in the world. It's pretty awesome.
So who's your person?
Well, I'm never getting in a Hall of Fame, I can tell you that, so I don't have to worry about this.
They're all random thoughts. I mean, they're all absurd.
Probably either my dad, because of what he's just, again, the support, like echoing everything that you said.
And to that, I do have to say my mom is very deserving of that, but I feel like I'd want my mom next to me, and she listens to this podcast, so I'm like, I have to caveat, jump in here. Shout out to Sandy. She is absolutely the greatest woman I have ever known, no doubt, but I would want her next to me. Like, I think, I need her side by side, because that's where she always is, like, in lockstep with me, so I feel like Jude
she's
could go
going
up
in
there.
with you.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
Going in.
That's
she's in
so
the same
true.
class.
Yes, and no doubt Judy would pay proper respects and honor my mom as well. So, okay, so either your dad or...
Either my dad or probably, echoing you, the person that most supported you, that has had your back when they're not related to you is probably Coach Leonard.
Mike L.
My college head football coach. Just
Go Grizz!
The most genuine, authentic, unbelievable person that I know, that I still keep in touch with regularly today. probably a couple times a month, if not more, depending on what's going on. But, yeah, you talk about just – he always said that where you go to college is not the most important decision that you make in your life, but it's in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would agree with that.
Going and being part of his program and playing for him and learning from him and going to that school was one of the best decisions I ever made because of what it allowed me to do and take advantage of and grow as a person.
I didn't even obviously play for Mike Leonard, but I know Mike, having covered him and covered his teams and have gotten to know him and become friends with him through you as well. And I can say I'm a better human being just because I know Mike Leonard.
Dude, totally.
That's the type of person who he is.
Absolutely.
Shout out, Coach L.
Yeah. So get that speech ready, Coach L, because you're going to hypothetically never need it.
It would be a good one.
You're never going to need it, I can tell you that. Hey, closing out, Inside the Draft is back this week. We've got a chat with Ian Cummings. That's up right now. He's from Pro Football Network as we continue to talk about the draft with all the insiders across the nation. Also this week, JJ, that special episode of the Whip Around podcast. We did that a little bit later last week. Now it's back.
Is that your whip sound?
That's my
whip around.
We talk about the top quarterbacks in the draft with folks that covered them so closely in college. Also this week, Inside Football with Rick Venturi is back. A special draft episode explaining what he thinks of all of the top quarterbacks in this draft.
I cannot wait
ahead of round number 1, so we're doing that a little bit later. And then the last word on Friday, special guest, not Jeffrey Gorman, but Chris Ballard following his pre-draft press conference. So stay tuned for that on Friday. We'll hear from the GM of the Colts about 5-6 days away from the draft and his thoughts on what's going on and setting the draft board and all of that. But to close out, Larra, with the next pick, it's coming out, right? Coming up on Thursday.
Look for it later on this week.
All right, JJ, what are you writing about this week going into the weekend before the draft?
So just still going through mock drafts and stuff. Chris Ballard talks to the media on Friday at noon, so I'll have some stuff from him. I'm sure he will reveal to us what the Colts draft plans are, exactly what they're going to do, who they like, who they don't like.
Right.
It'll be a very informative press conference. You guys know what it's going to sound like.
Yeah.
But I'll still have something off of that, and then next week we're into the draft. So finally we'll make it.
Yep, one more week to go. April 27th, round number 1. We'll have all the coverage for you, Colts.com, the Colts Audio Network. And as always, thanks for listening. Our thanks again to Chuck Pagano, who joined us a little bit earlier in this podcast as well. For Larra Overton, JJ Stankevitz, we'll do it again next Tuesday on another episode of the official Colts podcast. I'm Matt Taylor. We'll talk to you next week. So long.